The Thunder face a serious setback. A Cavalier star says the C word, and Giannis tries the na-na-na-boo-boo defense. That's all ahead today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Championship. What did you think I was? What? I don't.
Douglas.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is sponsored by our good friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Doug Branson, host of the Locked On Hornets podcast and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. We've got Matt Moore, and from the Locked On Bulls podcast, it is Hayes. All right, let's talk about Chet Holmgren. The Oklahoma City Thunder's championship hopes just took a major hit after Holmgren took a scary fall in last night's game against the Golden State Warriors. He will be sidelined for at least 2 months due to a right iliac wing fracture, which is essentially a cracked pelvic bone. Matt, your thoughts on the injury and how this affects the outlook for the Thunder?
First off, ow.
Yeah.
God, that sounds painful and horrible and awful. It sucks. It just sucks. The Thunder were so dominant, have just been unbelievable this season. They've arguably been the best team in the league. And now they have no bigs. Nope, no bigs, no hope, no change. They have no, that Jalen Williams is out. That's the third guy. Isaiah Hartenstein's still out. They're playing Ousmane Dieng tonight, and then after him, it's going to be I guess Alex Caruso is just going to play center. It's really rough. And the thing is, it's 8 to 10 weeks before he's reevaluated. Most people are yeah, it's probably going to be 3 months. We're not going to see Chet until post All-Star, if that. And that's a real bummer because this OKC team has been absolutely loaded. They've been so much fun to watch, and Holmgren's been a huge part of that, and he's been phenomenal on both ends. I don't think the Thunder are sunk. I think they'll probably figure this out because they got a great coach and a deep roster. They'll figure something out, but it's just a real bummer, and it does take the Thunder off the table for being maybe a really elite, 60-plus win team probably.
Hayes, do they figure this out?
Yeah, I think they have talent there. They'll figure it out. And I do think that they have a lot of assets. If they feel like they need to make a move, they can. They may try to wait till Isaiah Hartenstein comes back. But this sucks. Chet was playing so good for them. And while they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's an MVP candidate, Jaylen Williams is taking a step up. But this is the wrong time for this, and especially for the length of time he's going to be out. We're already not going to see Hartenstein come back until maybe the end of December, I think is the last projection I saw there. But I think the Thunder are too talented, too deep of a team. The defense they have out there on the perimeter, they're going to be able to overcome. They may be playing small, and it may make them more susceptible to larger front court teams, but I still think they'll be okay to stay afloat enough. And then they'll just have to make sure everybody's healthy for the playoff run.
All right, let's turn it over to Rylan Stiles of Locked On Thunder for his take on what the Thunder have to change to stay afloat without Holmgren.
Going to have to change, at least for tonight and at least for the short term. Offensively, what has to change is Shay and J-Dub have to, frankly, to put a label on it, be more selfish, but not selfish in a detraction way, selfish in a addition way, where even tonight during that run of trying to come back, Shay's passing up a good 3-point shot attempt, and Shay and J-Dub just have to take over games because they're the guys who have to bring it and carry the load every single night.
Matt, do you think that Chet Holmgren, playing at a Defensive Player of the Year level and all of the stuff that he was doing for Oklahoma City, do you think that clouded maybe a subpar start for Shay? And now, you hear Rylan there, he's got to step it up moving forward.
Yeah, look, they're going to need to win a little bit more with offense because the defense is going to take a hit because Chet's such a monster in terms of blocks. Now, look, they've got wing defenders for days. Lou Dort, Casey Wallace, Alex Caruso, Wiggins is good. Everybody on that team is good at wing defense. But they are missing the interior stuff, and so they're going to need a little bit more scoring, I think, and Shay's going to have to be a big part of that. They will have to get everybody kind of on the same page in terms of the shooting. They're going to have to get back to what they were last year, and they haven't really been that this year. They've been good. They've been great, but they haven't been elite in terms of the offense, and they're going to need to – that's going to have to get better to compensate the team has been 4 points worse defensively without Chet on the floor. Now, in those minutes, they're still only giving up a 101.3 defensive rating because the Thunder are insane, but that's probably going to get rougher versus the starting unit. So you are going to need to see Shay take over. And I think Jalen Williams as well. And Casey Wallace. Like, the biggest thing, honestly, for me is as much as Shay is going to have to step up and get back to 30 a night solid, it's also a matter of the Thunder are going to have to get their great shooting guys to start hitting some great threes. They just need a lot of great shooting nights to compensate here, and they can still keep up their pace.
Hayes, quick prediction time. A lot of people had the Thunder coming out of the West with the number 1 overall seed prior to this injury. Now that they have to sustain this, maybe as Matt said, for as long as 3 months, maybe even longer, do you see them as even a top 4 seed out of the West?
I want to say based off the talent that they still have there, yes, but I could see them. They just have to avoid the play-in. So I could see them falling as low as 5th in the Western Conference, depending on how things shake out for them, how good their shooting can be for the remainder part of this season while they're missing them. But with Isaiah Hartenstein coming back towards the end of December, and I think he's not gonna be able to simulate what Chet brought at all, but I do think he can help that out a lot. So if they can just stay afloat here for the next 4 or 5 weeks, I think that they could be okay. I still think that 4th or 5th is probably what I'll say the lowest they could drop.
Okay, let's turn quickly to. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Lock top 4 seed. They're not going anywhere. They're too good. They're too deep. They'll be of the bad teams. The Western Conference, look around. Not actually that great. They're gonna be fine.
Okay, let's turn quickly to the Eastern Conference. Much more fun topic. The most talked about story maybe this weekend out of the Eastern Conference, and it was an exchange between Giannis and Jaylen Brown. Here's Locked On Celtics host John Corrales with more on that.
Jaylen Brown versus Giannis Antetokounmpo was kind of funny. So he gets the switch on Giannis plenty of times, and they're going back and forth and whatever. He gets Giannis. Giannis turns and high elbow, boom, right into Jaylen's face. I do not know why that wasn't reviewed. As Jaylen is coming down the floor, Giannis gives him the hand. It's like, all right, hey, buddy. Like he's giving like the my bad. And Jaylen goes for it, and Giannis does the, too slow. It's objectively funny to see a grown man, an NBA megastar, do the too slow handshake fake out thing in the middle of an NBA game. Jaylen said Giannis is a child. I don't think he has a problem necessarily with Giannis, but like, I feel like this season, Jaylen is like super serious. The Celtics play the Bucks again December 6th. So a few weeks. Watch those two. I think there might be something there.
Okay, Hayes, do you like the serious approach that Jaylen Brown is taking to this season, or do you like the Giannis plays the game with joy no matter what approach?
I mean, I like the Jaylen Brown approach, especially for somebody who's on the team that's a defending champion. My question is, and while generally I like players to have some jovialness, like it's okay, but what does Giannis have to smile about? Your team sucks. There should be no joy for you right now. Don't smile. You haven't earned a smile. Like, and even after the game saying like, I like to keep young people around me. It keeps me young. Like, yeah, that's fine. But you know what the problem is that your team has the same amount of wins right now as the age you're acting on the court. That's a problem there.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that Giannis is probably trying to make the best of a bad situation. He's played awesome. He's done his job. I can't sit there and say that Giannis isn't doing enough to contribute to the winning. We missed out on the best part of this, which is Jaylen Brown after the game saying, well, yeah, like, why? What'd you think about this? And he said, Giannis is a child, which, I mean, I don't blame Jaylen Brown. He thinks children are have to be idiots. That's why he backed Kanye West Donda Academy, which has been sued for being a scam, by the way. But anyway, I think Jaylen Brown and overall has had like a lot of issues with various like approaches. And I actually kind of I'm with Hayes here. I side with Jaylen for, all right, man, like you hit him in the head. Probably no need to do that. And also, who does that? Who does the too slow? Who does that? It is 2024. It has been a minute since anybody dropped the too slow. I guess good for Giannis for bringing kind of a retro thing back, but overall, I don't think anybody comes out looking awesome here, except the Celtics and the Bucks just kind of look worse.
I wonder
Well, listen, if
Giannis-
you're Jaylen, you got to stay on your toes, man. You got to sniff that out. That's on court awareness right there. You got to really understand that when that hand comes out, it's not. You're in the middle. It's not like after the game or anything. You're in the middle of battle.
It is what
All
it
right.
is.
Okay, coming up, the Cavaliers remain the only undefeated team in the NBA and are now making LOB proclamations. And later, we're not done with injuries. More stars go down on teams that don't run Thunder deep. Who is most in danger of blowing it all up? Is it New Orleans? That's ahead on Locked On NBA. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And that's great because I don't like to go multiple places when I'm trying to make my bets and watch my TV. We already have enough apps and dongles and things we got to figure out. I want the betting and the games all in the same place. So I like that about FanDuel. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com today and join. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste one of your amazing hunches and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free daily newsletter, so make them your first read. Go to LockedOnDaily.com, subscribe, stay up to date with local expert analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, who got a shout out in the New Yorker recently for her work on basketball feelings, Michael Shearer of Basketball Poetry, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball Tips from Josh Lloyd. Okay, let's move over to the Cavaliers after a tough fought victory over the Brooklyn Nets. The Cavs aren't just celebrating an 11-0 start. Darius Garland is setting the bar even higher. Here's Danny Cunningham from Locked On Cavaliers with more.
Darius Garland was asked about the winning streak and if it is something that creeps into his mind. He said, quote, "We're trying to win a championship. We're not trying to go 82-0. They believe it's possible inside that organization." To hear one of the faces, one of the leaders, one of the stars of this team come out and say, "We're trying to win a championship. We're not trying to go 82-0. I think that is something that Cavs fans should be really, really happy about because they're not satisfied. They're not striking me as a team that's going to be satisfied with a really good regular season. The Cavs have a target on their back now, and it will be cool to me seeing how they operate as such. Darius Garland said it in his on-court interview with Serena Winters after the game. They're not the hunters right now. They're the hunted. They are the team that teams are coming after. And watching how they handle that, I think will tell us a lot more about how this team can operate in the postseason.
Okay, let's play a little game of too soon. Was Darius Garland getting out ahead of the wagon a little bit with that championship talk, Matt, or are the Cavs true contenders?
I mean, it's tough, right? Because it's just like, look, you haven't actually accomplished anything. If you go back and you look at it, the teams that started 11-0, the 2016 Warriors, probably not on that level, right? 2002 Mavericks did it, and they didn't win the title. How about the 1998 Lakers? Nope, that's a no. 1998 Hawks also got to 11-0. Nope, didn't win the title either. And then you go back to the Bulls with Jordan in the 96-97 season. I think if you look at this, it's good that the Cavs are setting the bar high because you want to be able, like, you need to believe, like, you genuinely need to believe, but it has to be like, we have such a long way to go. Like, there's so many things that we have to do ahead of us. There's so many things that we have to, they're out of their control. They have to be healthy. They have to be ready. They have to have the right matchups. All of these things have to be there. But I do think it's important not to just be like resting on your laurels and taking this as an accomplishment. Instead, be like, we haven't done anything. We want to win a title. That's the right approach.
I love the mindset. Like, I love the fact that that's the focus is that, hey, we're trying to win the championship. These wins are cool, but like the ultimate goal is winning the title. Now, do I think that they're contenders? As I said before, when we talked about this, I think when they were at 8 or 9 wins, like they still have to show a lot more sustained over the course of the season. I still have Boston. I'm going to bet on Boston before I do the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, that's not to knock the Cavs themselves. It's just that they got a lot left to prove. And the regular season goes a long way in proving some things, but it won't really be told until we see how dominant you are in the playoffs, because we've seen teams before have very good, solid regular seasons and great records in the regular season that then fall apart in the playoffs, whether it be through injury, matchups, a specific matchup that doesn't play into their hands or whatever it is. So, again, not to knock the Cavs, because I don't know if you guys saw it or not. Cavs fans killed us in the comments of the last YouTube video for some reason. We're not knocking you guys. You're not Clippers fans. I actually like you guys, but it just comes down to they just got to prove it. Right? It is what it is.
Oh, well, would a win against the Bulls tonight, would that prove it to you, Hayes?
I think the three of us could beat the Bulls if Josh Giddey's on the court. So no, it really.
Oh boy, we'll have to dig into that later. Here's what I'm curious about: the Cavs. I was looking into it. They sport the best offense in the league, despite being 26th in free throw rate and 15th in 3-point attempt rate. So, Matt, what's the secret sauce to the offense right now?
Well, they're shooting 42% from 3-point range, which is best in the league. So that makes
up. That'll do it.
That makes up for the rate there. They're also, by the way, really high in points in the paint, and they're also number one in points off of turnovers. The defense is fueling this a lot. Now, some of these numbers are going to regulate offensively. What I will say is that game versus the Warriors, I think, is a really good example of how they can absolutely just run anybody off the floor, because they do move the ball well. Their execution is great. They can hit you inside and out. If you do not send enough resources down low, Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are going to score through you. And if you send those guys, they are going to kick out and they're going to find open shooters on the outside. When you got Dean Wade and you've got Sam Merrill and you've got all these guys that are able to contribute, then they're really hitting you in waves right now. And it is pretty impressive. Like, there's a lot. I will say this. I am much closer than Hayes to the Cavs are the team to beat. The Celtics won last year, and that's awesome. And they deserve all the credit, and they have to be like, they're the champs, et cetera, et cetera. But like, we all know the road the Celtics went through. Like, we know who they beat. And so I think there's a definite chance that the Cavaliers can be that team this season. You just have to be like, you got to get there, man. It's just so far away. It's 5 months from now. You have to be there 5 months from now. If they are playing like this consistently throughout the year, then yeah, at some point we're going to be like, no, it's the Cavs. It's the Cavs this year. But we just got a long way to go.
And if they continue to be healthy, I mean, that's just going to give them even more of an advantage of having played with one another and gotten into that rhythm. Because, I mean, eventually they'll sustain some injuries. But if they get this early progress going, I think that could be very good for them. Okay, you mentioned the Warriors, who took a big loss to the Cavaliers, but it was their only loss on their road trip, 4-1. And they're feeling very confident over at Locked On Warriors about this team putting the NBA on notice. Let's take a listen to that.
Was your measuring stick. You take down Boston, you get blown out by the Cleveland Cavaliers on the road. This was like, all right, what is this road trip going to be? Are we taking away from this road trip that the Warriors are a serious contender and the NBA should be on notice? Or are they just a pretty good team in the West? And the answer is the former. The Golden State Warriors, contenders again in the West. Yes, I said it.
Okay. Matt, he said it. And you were shaking your head the entire time. I want to talk about the Nuggets, too, who are 5-0 on their homestand. But before we talk about your Nuggets, Matt, why were you shaking your head at the Warriors' pronouncement there?
Look, if you dive into this stuff, here's what it is. It's shooting variance. The Warriors are a really good team. They're a really good Western Conference team. It's shooting variance. The Warriors have the lowest opponent shooting percentage, and we know that number is not sustainable. There's all this data that tells you that opponent 3-point percentage is mostly luck. That now they're allowing a pretty good rate. They're not like, I'm not saying that this is a bad team. I'm saying they're not as elite as this looks. And to me, the test was Cleveland. Like, that to me was the test. You beat Boston. That's been a good matchup for you. That game was close throughout. They didn't have Jaylen Brown or Kristaps Porzingis. Congrats, good win. But then you go into Cleveland, and Cleveland not only beats you, jumps up and down all over you. And then you beat the Thunder, who lose Chet Holmgren in the first quarter, and the entire mood in the arena dies. And Draymond says, Dubs are back, baby. That was when I was out. I was like, all right, I'm out. That's it. We're done. Warriors are going to be a good team. Warriors are going to be a pain to play in the playoffs. If they get there. Warriors, I'm not buying them. I'm still out on the Golden State Warriors being a contender this season.
If they get there is crazy, man, but I understand it. I'll say this.
Last 2 seasons play-in has not been kind.
This is true. Like, The Golden State Warriors are good. Like, make no mistake about it. Like, they're a fun team to watch. They're good. They're a fun story. Seeing Draymond Green lock back in on defense has been so good and fun to see. But then you got to look at this. When's the Draymond meltdown coming at some point this season? Because it's going to come at some point this season. It's going to blow. Like, and I think the Warriors are going to be a good team for the majority of the season. Make no mistake about it. But, like, contenders in the West, like, I don't have. They're not as good as Denver. They're not as good as OKC Thunder when they're fully healthy. I'll tell you what, the way the Phoenix Suns have been playing, now we know KD's down, though. I would even pick the Phoenix Suns in the playoff series against the Golden State Warriors right now.
Look,
I don't know when the meltdown's coming, but I did see Draymond Green swinging his arms again, and he hit someone in the head. So it didn't get called. I don't even think it got called a common foul. It was just not a technical item.
Right back to 2016. We're right back.
They're locked in.
In so many ways, is it 2016 again?
Okay, I do want to ask the question: who's more on notice with the NBA? Is it or who's putting the NBA more on notice, the Warriors or the Nuggets? Because the Nuggets are doing some fantastic things. So we'll ask that on the other side coming up on the Locked On NBA podcast. Plus, there's some other teams that have had some big injuries this season, and a few of them had some ideas of contending, but I'm going to ask Matt and Hayes if they should turn the wheel around and start to wave the Cooper flag. We'll get to that and more on Locked On NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time makes buying tickets to your next event even easier, and not just sports. Game Time has great deals on concerts and events too. And with Game Time Picks, they gather up all of the best deals and put them all into one place. They're doing the work for you and saving you money. It's great. And that's not all. You can also get seat views, a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And they have the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. There's a free daily Locked On podcast for your favorite NBA team. Search your favorite podcast app for Locked On and your favorite team today. And maybe your favorite team is the Denver Nuggets. And after a clutch win against Dallas, they capped off a 5-0 homestand. Matt, you cover the Nuggets for Locked On Nuggets. Should the league take more notice of what Jokic is doing without Aaron Gordon than what Steph is doing with the kids over in Golden State?
Okay, that's a tough question. I think individually, yes. I think on a team level, no. So I would tell you that, like, what I saw from Joker last night: 37 points, 18 rebounds, 15 assists. Nobody's ever done it. Nobody's ever had that many points, that many rebounds, and that many assists. No one's ever done it. It's nuts. He's first in rebounds. He's first in assists. He's fourth in points per game. That's before we get into the Vorps and Schmorps. Like, it's just ridiculous what Joker has done. At the same time, I'll just tell you, like, I'm not buying Denver as, like, the team in the West here yet either. I have said on Locked On Nuggets, the window is not closed. Get to the playoffs, this Nuggets team can figure it out. You saw some of the things that they did to adjust to the Mavericks last night in what was a great game, but they're one of several teams that can win the Western Conference. I don't think Denver is above or below any other tier, I think, in the Western Conference outside of OKC fully healthy.
The Denver Nuggets, they are the ones to watch in the Western Conference. I mean, like, what Jokic is doing has been so special, so dominant, and for a while there went overlooked just because the Denver Nuggets weren't necessarily having the team success. But if I'm picking any team to be the story in the Western Conference, like right now, the Denver Nuggets are that story. And I know Matt joked before, like, who wants to cover another Jokic MVP season? Me. I would love to be able to cover MVP season over on Locked On Bulls. What Jokic is doing is just great to see. And like I said before, I sometimes getting the conversation about Jokic can go so many different ways, but at the end of the day, he's just the player that just gets everything done. He's so dominant. He makes the game so much easier on all his opponents. And, oh, by the way, if Jamal Murray starts waking up, the Nuggets may very well win the Western Conference again this season.
I think the biggest story out of the Nuggets right now is Peyton Watson patenting the finger roll block. Like, I don't know how he keeps getting these blocks right off of his fingertips. We do a lot of obsessing around, the combine and draft time around wingspan. And I finally get it now. Like, I finally get why people obsess over it so much. Moving on. And unfortunately, we're not done talking about injuries because NBA stars simply won't stop getting injured. Kevin Durant is going to miss 2 weeks with a calf strain. Anthony Davis has a lingering foot injury, and now he's got an eye injury that took him out of his last game. John Moran is week to week with a hip injury. And Locked On Pelicans host Jake Madison clues us in on what's going on with Zion Williamson's latest injury.
He's been injured. He's tried to play through it, which is somewhat of a credit to him, and it just wasn't working. So they decided to get some imaging done, and then they've decided to rule him out once it confirmed a hamstring strain, especially given what has gone on in the past. So let's get in front of this right now. I don't think this is him trying to force his way out or anything like that. I don't think it's that he doesn't like it here or anything like that. So if it is something that rules him out for a while, it's really going to raise the question of, can you actually build around Zion Williamson? Was last year when he was healthy the outlier or the norm? And at a certain point, you just can't keep going forward like this. And that's kind of the situation we're in with Zion.
Okay, so we have New Orleans here. I'll let you guys throw a couple of other teams into this discussion. I'll throw Milwaukee in there as well. They're missing Chris Middleton, but they've got even deeper problems than that as the losses continue to pile up. Which of these teams that may have thought they wanted to contend, all of a sudden they're not contending, which of these teams do you think should consider blowing things up and start thinking about next season's draft?
I mean, the Pelicans, the problem you kind of get into here from a team standpoint is there are points where you can keep justifying it over and over again of if we can just get healthy, But there's a point where GMs and especially owners will just be like, it's bad luck, but also it's run its course. We need to change things up. We got to go in a different direction. We can't keep running the same idea back over and over again. And that's been the story with the Pelicans is they've just had so many. Like this season is really excessive. They're missing Zion Williamson, Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, DeJounte Murray, and Jordan Hawkins right now. Like that's a great starting lineup. Like that's really good. And they're missing all of those guys. And it's just this constant parade. The Bucks, I don't know what to do with because the only way to really kind of pivot off of this, given their situation, is to completely tear it down and try and find some sort of really wild trade scenario. And you're ending your contention level then, period, and die. And you only do that if Giannis says, I want out. The Pelicans, I think, are much more likely to be in a spot where they have to make that decision just based off of their inability to have fate, luck, whatever, go their way to give them a healthy season to compete.
The answer should be the Milwaukee Bucks, but then again, the Bucks don't own their own first round pick outright until 2031. So like, yep. Like even if they were to move Giannis, you're then at that point at the feet of whatever you get in that trade. So like it really in a perfect world, the Milwaukee Bucks would have their own pick in this year's draft, which is one of the deepest drafts that's supposed to be here in however long, right? And then they could move on from Giannis and restart anew because no free agents come in there. They were lucky to get Dame to even come there. And Giannis, if you look at the way that Giannis is talking, especially when he mentions the team, he seems like he's fed up. Now, maybe it's fed up to the point where he just wants things to change there, but we've seen it before. That can go very quickly to, no, get me the hell out of here. And so if that's the case, the Milwaukee Bucks should be terrified, but they're the ones who should be looking to blow this up. They look old. They look slow. Their coach has no answers. I get it that Chris Middleton is out, but Chris Middleton isn't coming back and changing the things that have been hurting that team. He's not adding much defensively. It should be the Milwaukee Bucks. I don't really have any other answer to that, but it won't be.
So you mentioned the Bucks there, and this is not anything I've heard through the grapevine. I'm sure this is not going to happen, but I just wanted to bounce it off of Hayes. You said the problem is the picks. You know who has a lot of picks and no big men right now is the Oklahoma City Thunder, Hayes.
Yeah.
Should Presti make a call?
Presti probably should. Like what the thing with Presti is Presti can get anybody he wants. I don't know anybody who can match Presti making an offer. Like between the young talent, the picks, everything, Presti can get anybody who comes available. So yeah, he should be the first one to call. If Giannis Antetokounmpo officially requests a trade and the Bucks are taking calls, Presti should be at the front of the line because nobody can match the offer that Presti has, in my opinion.
He just doesn't want to be too slow with Giannis. You know what I'm saying? He just you don't want to, because Presti will get got. I want to flip this. I want to flip this around and talk about a couple of teams that have overperformed their expectations and should consider not blowing it up and maybe trying to get to the playoffs. Portland's played better than I think people thought they would have by this time in the season. Detroit, Charlotte. What's a team that you think of and you say, actually, they should hit the gas pedal towards the postseason as opposed to breaking it all down?
I'm going to say Detroit. I think the Blazers are terrible. They are awful. Hornets might be okay, but the Pistons, I'm telling you, look at their strength of schedule and how they have hung. And they have hung with with elite teams, great teams. They have been right there. Houston's really good, and they were right there yesterday with a chance to win that game too. Detroit needs like one more guy. Detroit is one guy, I think, away from genuinely being like a 500 team with a chance to make the playoffs. That's how close Detroit is. JB Bickerstaff's doing what he does. Cade's made the leap. Jaden Ivey's made the leap. Their bigs are good. There is a foundation there. That team can win. They just need like a little bit of luck or one more guy. I'm going to go with Detroit.
It's amazing how good Jaden Ivey looks now with the coach that actually believes in him and not playing Killian Hayes above him. It's great. So I'm not mad at the Detroit pick there, but I'm going to go the Charlotte Hornets. They've been my dark horse even before the season started. When you have a healthy LaMelo Ball, the last time you had that, they were a 43-win team. And not to say that they're automatically just going to get back there, but I think that this is a team, if they can have health or get a center. By the way, in Chicago, we have one. You guys can come get him off our hands for a second. But I really like this Charlotte Hornets team. I love Brandon Miller. I love LaMelo Ball. I wish LaMelo locked in a little bit more on the defensive side of the ball like his brother Lonzo, but my pick would be the Charlotte Hornets for all those reasons.
Yeah, and injuries, as you mentioned, that struck the Charlotte Hornets for many years now. But yeah, definitely the center position. They are deficient, but those guys could get healthier. We'll have to see what happens with Charlotte and with Detroit as well. Detroit has an attitude. Like the Hornets just recently, I covered a game between the Pistons and the Hornets, and they've just got an attitude that says, okay, these guys, once they kind of put it all together, they're going to be a really tough team to beat. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Hayes. And thank you all for listening to this episode of the Locked On NBA podcast. And Matt and Hayes, I want you to prep because I want to talk about kind of the deeper level of these injuries, because we've seen a lot of star injuries and people are doing a lot of talking about how much space is being created in today's game and what that effect is. I don't have time to talk about it today, but I just want to put a bug in your ear because I think it's super interesting to think about as we move forward. But hopefully we're done with these star injuries, particularly because we're going to be previewing the NBA Cup tomorrow. And I'm sure the NBA would love if more star players were available for that in-season tournament. Okay, if you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts. That includes YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Enjoy tonight's action. Be kind to each other. And we'll see you right back here for a Tuesday edition of Locked On NBA.